Hey everyone. In this session, I would like to introduce you to the wonderful world of curves inside of Photoshop. I have a series of 5 images that I'll be stepping you through, demonstrating various aspects of how to use curves. And we'll be starting with this image just here. I chose this one as a good starting point because there's a nice big range of both colors and tones in here, and that'll become important when I show you what a histogram is in just a few moments. One thing I would like to demonstrate first, guys, is how to work on your images non-destructively. So in my layers panel just here, you'll notice I have just a single background layer. If I were to come up to Image, Adjustments, and come down to Curves, don't worry, I will explain all of this in just a few moments. But if I was to make a rather big change, you can see with my preview turned on, yes, the image has definitely gotten brighter. I'll choose OK. Here's the big problem. Yes, we achieved the look we wanted, but we have done so in a destructive way. We have actually changed the pixels within this background layer. Now, if that's all you need, so be it. But if you want to potentially undo this at a later stage, you could have some serious problems. So I'm just going to undo that with a Command or Control Z. Here's the way to work non-destructively. You want to be adding that curves as an adjustment layer. So we can do that in a few different ways. We actually have an adjustments panel here, guys. There is a little curves button just here. You could easily press that to add your curves adjustment layer. But I'm going to come back to the layers panel and point out at the bottom just down here, there's a little black and white circle. If I click on that and click on curves, it has now added a curves adjustment layer as its own separate layer. So with the eyeball icon next to that, I can easily turn that on and off at will at a later stage. Big takeaway, of course, is we are not going to be changing the pixels within the background layer. Fantastic. Okay, this thing just here, guys, this is the mask, which is added by default to the curve. We don't have to worry about that, so we can just ignore that today. So if I click on the thumbnail just here for the curves adjustment layer, you can see our properties panel springs to life and is now showing us details for curves. So let's explore that just now. So we've got two things going on just in here. We've got this diagonal line just here. I'm going to get to that in just a minute because that is actually the curve we're going to be changing. I first want to draw your attention to this thing in the background just here, this big bell-shaped looking thing just here. This is your histogram. This is actually representing the tones and the colors within the image. So the way we read this histogram is we have this bottom axis just here. We have black on the left with a value of 0 and white on the right with a value of 255. And all of the values in between, of course, represent all the colors and tones within this image. Now, the vertical scale represents quantity. So that's basically just showing you the number of pixels of that particular shade that you have. So the way we can read this is you can see that it's roughly 0 down this bottom left corner, which is means we have some black, but almost no pure black within this graphic. And just over here, you can see we've got just a little bit of white. And you can see all of the other colors are nicely distributed in this rough bell-shaped curve just here. Guys, when you hear people talking about curves, you'll often hear them talk about this theoretical bell shape. It's a great theoretical discussion, and it kind of roughly looks like this graphic just here. But what you'll find is that most images tend not to look like that. And you'll even see that in our other images, which I'll be demonstrating for you shortly. Okay, so that's the histogram, guys. And again, that's representing the actual pixels within the image that you have. So let's now talk about this diagonal line just here, which is our curve. Now, in reference to the curve, the same rule applies that I was talking about before in reference to the horizontal axis. So again, we have black at 0 on the far left and white at 255 on the far right. This represents input on this horizontal axis, while the vertical axis represents your output. So what does that mean? Well, currently we have everything being evenly mapped. Black on our input is mapped to black on the output, and white on the input is mapped to white on the output. So if we were to do something like this, click in here and make a change, we have now remapped the way those colors appear from input to output. So black still goes to black, white still goes to white, but what we've now done is added a point which is basically saying everything that has a value of 127, now push that up to 176, and you can see all the other colors and tones adjusting nicely around that. So that's what we can do here, guys. We can click in here and make points and move those points around. I can click to add another point and move that around like so. If I want to get rid of a point, simply grab it and throw it off the area just here and it will disappear. So if you click to add a point, you can move that around. And then when you don't want that anymore, just click it and drag it off like so. So that's the rough idea behind adding curves, guys. Let's now run through those other images and let's look at some real world practical examples of how to use this stuff. So I have a graphic just here, pipes, and it's a nice enough image, but it looks kind of washed out, right? It's got no oomph. There's no real contrast just there. So let's see what's going on just here. So from our layers panel, let's go and add a curves adjustment layer. And let's look down here in our properties panel and we can immediately see what's going on just here. This is why this picture is so lackluster, because there's no real blacks and there's no real whites just down here. So how can we change that? Well, we have these little triangles just down the bottom here, guys. You can drag those to change the black or the white point, or you can actually grab those little dots within the curve itself. You can use either, totally up to you. So if I want to grab this black triangle just down here and move this over, now what I'm aiming for, guys, is the start of the pixel information just down here. So if I bring that just to about there, did you see how much nicer the blacks got within this graphic just here? That's because we are saying now, anything with a pixel value of 38 or less, make that black. So let's go and adjust the whites. So if I grab the white triangle just here, and if I drag that across, look how much this image pops just now. This is fantastic. So if you read the numbers just down here, guys, our whites, I'm basically saying anything with a value above 220, now make that 255, which is a pure white. So we have dramatically improved the contrast in this image, and it's looking great because we have dragged those black and white triangles to the start of the pixel information within the histogram. Again, guys, you don't have to drag to the end of that information. It's totally up to you. But if you're just looking for a good guide on how best to approach this, that's the best way to do it. Drag your black and white triangles to the start of that pixel information. Should point out, guys, if you go that a little bit too far, so for example, if I grab the black one, if I really start to drag this in, now you can totally do this if this is the artistic choice that you want. But do you see how we're getting these big blobs of black? That's because we are basically saying take anything with a pixel value of 77 or lower and make it a pure black. So all that nice little shadow detail that we had in there, we have completely obliterated it by moving that triangle too far. So I'm going to move that back to about there, maybe even a little further in, and that image is looking great. Okay, guys, so that's adjusting the black and white point within the curves. Let's have a look at our next image along. And I've got a wood image just here. And let's have a look at messing with contrast. I'm going to specifically introduce you to a concept called the S-curve. So let's go and add our curves adjustment layer. And let's look at our properties panel just here. Now you might immediately look at this and go, hey, we need to fix this white point. Look at this. There's really no white information just up here. We should be grabbing this and moving this down. Again, guys, just reminding you, this is totally a creative choice, right? So in this case, I don't mind the fact that this image is a little bit dark overall. All I want to do is start messing with the contrast. So what's this S-curve I was talking about? Well, I'll just demonstrate it actually. So what I'm thinking is I would like to darken the darks and brighten the brights. So in other words, our shadows, I'm going to darken that. So I'm going to click to add a point. So remember, if this is our black and if this is our white and this is our mid-tone just in here, this area here roughly represents our shadows and this area up here our highlights. So having added a point just here, if I drag that down, I am now darkening the shadows. But remember, I want to increase the contrast. So having darkened the darks, I now need to lighten the lights. So I'm going to add a point just up here and drag that up. And check this out, guys. This is looking great. So I'm going to come up to my layers panel just here and turn off and on the visibility of that adjustment layer. And that is making a massive change. That's really making the image pop. The color's looking great. The tones are looking great. So I'm very happy with that. So that's an S-curve there, guys. So if you hear people talking about S-curves, it's basically a way of increasing the contrast via the curves adjustment layer just there. Okay, very nice. Let's look at another example just here. So I've got some plants just here. I want to show you can actually use curves to not just mess with, say, your contrast, but you can also go after individual colors as well. So let's come down to curves. So we're adding the curves adjustment layer just here. And guys, the black and the white points, I'm pretty happy with those. So the contrast in here is also already pretty good. So I don't really need to change anything here. Here's the cool thing that you can really start to do when you take a deep dive into this stuff. RGB, that's what we've actually been playing with. We've been playing with effectively the master curve. We actually have curves for the red, the green, and the blue channel, which make up this image. So if I, for example, come into the green channel, and my objective here is to add more green to the image, I can click to add a point in here and drag this up. Now I'm going to really push it just so you can really see it. I have now dramatically increased the green, and just the green, within this image. Now, if you're thinking I'll push that too far, it's very easy to bring back like so. So guys, let's say I did want to change the contrast. I can easily come back into the RGB. Remember, that's your master curve. And I could easily add a hint of contrast, for example. And then I'm thinking, oh, I need some more green. So I can just pop into the green and easily adjust that green like so. Very cool. So that's how we can use curves to add color to an image. And I'd like to now jump over to the last image here, this beach scene just here, because we're going to now bring it all together and do everything that I've already showed you to this one single image. So come down and add a curves adjustment layer. So let's go and fix those black and white points. So let's drag that black point in. And let's drag that white point in. So you can see before and after. It's already dramatically improving the contrast in our scene. But let's now really add a bit of contrast. So let's go and add a bit of an S curve to this. Okay, guys, this is all artistically to your taste. So that's not looking too bad. So we've adjusted the black and white points. We've introduced a bit more contrast via an S curve. Now let's look at the colors here. So this image looks quite yellow. So let's come into our RGB values and let's go and change the yellow. And okay, so we've got red, green, and blue. So here's where you need to know a little bit about color. Yellow is basically a combination of red and green. So we could go into our individual red and green channels and increase or decrease those values. Or we could go after the blue channel because blue and yellow are complementary colors. So if I go into the blue channel, now remember our objective here is to remove yellow. So I can either remove yellow via the red and green channels, or I can do the opposite and add blue. So now that we're in the blue channel, I can dial in a bit of extra blue and check that out. It has totally removed that yellow color cast and the image is now looking much more neutral and looking great. Now, having done all this, guys, I can see that maybe there's a little bit too much red in her skin just over here. So let's jump over into the red channel and let's take a little bit of red out. There we go. So let's have a look at the before and after, before and after. Fantastic. So of course, guys, you could spend hours, if not days, diving into the specifics of what you can do with curves. I just wanted to give you a nice introduction today. I hope that helps. Catch you later.